guys, welcome to our first session for week 4. Today we are simply going to go through some practice looking at some nifty tools in Dreamweaver that we haven't gone over. Other than that, at the end we may talk a little bit about the emerging web technologies if we have time. I don't think we are going to have time, so we'll be doing that tomorrow because that's part of your assessment. We will also be doing the demo for the assignment tomorrow. So today we're strictly going to go through some practice and looking at some new tools in Dreamweaver that we haven't gone over yet. We're going to go through the announcements and then the HTML practice. Tuesday is our next lecture at 3 p.m. and that is where we will do the demos and talk about the assessment. I will be in the SSC tonight from 6 to 9 p.m. Mountain Time. I will also be in the SSC, except for you. I will also be in the SSC on Thursday from 8 to 11 and Friday from 4 to 11 p.m. Mountain Time. So if you need help with any of the previous weeks or this week's, please come in and see me. Okay, Lily, we will go through what to do. Give me just a second to put my canvas into student view so you guys can see it. And I will show you exactly how to get in there. Student view. Okay, let me share my Canvas screen with you. Okay, guys, if you need to get into the SSC, you're just going to log on to the classroom, and here on your home page, you're going to click Student Success Center. It will load a new page that looks like this. You're going to click on, if you've never been in the SSC before, go ahead and click on the login instructions for the Student Success Center because I think it has the download link. No, it doesn't look like it. Gives you the instructions, but it doesn't actually have the link. So you can go ahead and click on Enter Student Success Center. If it's your first time signing on, put your first name and last name in here, and you're going to hit log on. And then a message is going to come up and tell you that you need to download the interface for Blackboard. Go ahead and download it and install it, and then come back to this screen, retype in your email, and hit your first and last name, and then just hit log in. It's going to send a little download link. You just click it and give it a moment. And it will load Blackboard here. It's not always very fast. Sometimes it takes it a minute. Come on. You'll see a purple icon. Here we go. You'll see a purple icon and this little thing will pop up once it's started.
Recording in progress.
And then this is what the Student Success Center looks like. Right now, they are closed. They don't open up until, they open up in about 45 minutes. And it tells you here, today is Monday. They open at 5 p.m. on Monday. So Monday, they have 2 separate hours. Otherwise, Tuesday through Friday, they're open from Tuesday through Thursday, 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. and Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 p.m. And Saturday from 9 a.m. to 12 a.m., which is midnight. So this is how you get in there. Once you pop up in this screen, you're going to see a list of rooms, kind of like this Z waiting. except for they will be named anything from, it may say math, it may have a class number on it. For graphic design, it will say graphic design. Sociology, your SOC classes will say sociology. But any of the graphic design rooms are the rooms you want to go in if it's a class on your design classes or your web design classes. So anything that's a DS class, you want to go see the graphic design room. And you simply click the little drop down next to your name, and you'll have an option that'll say move to. There's not any rooms open right now, so you'll have an option that says move to, and if you hover over it, it'll give you the list of the rooms, and you just click the one you want to go to, or you can simply grab yourself and drag yourself down to that room and hover over it, and then let go of your mouse button, and it'll automatically put you in that room. Okay. So now we're going to hop over to Dreamweaver. There we go. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is go up to my site, go to Manage Sites. I'm going to click on my HTML sheet and hit Done. I'm going to go to File. I'm going to go to New, HTML, hit Create. And this is going to be over grids. And it's going to open that HTML document for you. Now, you have several tabs up here with your file panel. You should have a tab that says Files, one that probably says CSS Libraries, one that says Insert, and one that says CSS Designer. We're going to be working with the Insert tab to start off with. These are basically cheats for writing code and creating CSS. You have different sections in this little drop-down menu from HTML, just regular plain HTML. It has div tags, images, your paragraph tags, your heading tags, creating a table, unordered list, inserting videos, metadata, keywords, all of that good stuff. Today, we are going to be looking at the Bootstrap components. Bootstrap is responsive web design. And you will notice you have a container, container fluid, and grid row and column. We've worked a lot with grid row and column for the past couple weeks, have we not? So we are going to work with that today. I'm going to put my cursor at the start, at the end of that start body tag, and hit my enter key. And I'm going to come over here and click grid row and column. Now it asks me number of columns to add. Well, okay, let's think about our services page. Was it our services page? Yes, our services page had two columns on that first row, right? Both those colored boxes, when it's desktop size, were 2 columns. So I'm going to hit my number 2. And it asks me if I want to insert row before, after, or next. I want to insert it after the body tag. So I'm going to hit after and hit OK. Now you'll notice it did a funny step. It added a whole bunch of code up to the top in the head. It's telling us metadata, viewpoint, content width, device width, initial scale, and it links this style sheet, which is an online style sheet. And then it puts in your div row into different div columns. So let's fill out this first one. This is column 1, just so we have a nice visual up there. This is column 2. There's my 2 columns. And you can see it automatically put in some media tags for me. Pretty cool. If I pull this down to the next media tag, we're still at 2 columns. If I go even smaller, it automatically goes to 1 column. And it stacks on top of each other the way it should. So this makes it automatically responsive. The thing I want to note though is in Bootstrap CSS, this is the style sheet that it attached. It's actually online, you can see it, but you cannot edit it, which sometimes makes for a very big headache because maybe you need to do something a little different than what's happening on your screen right now. Maybe you need more padding. Maybe you need the margins different, that sort of thing. And you can't do that in this style sheet because you can't actually edit it. You either have to save the entire file sheet, which you can. If I tried to edit some here, it would edit something here. Let's see. File, save all. Grids, save, place. Now, I've made that change, and what happens when you make that change is it's going to automatically copy that Bootstrap CSS into your folder. Well, guys, that Bootstrap CSS file is huge. And I don't mean 500 lines. I mean completely and utterly huge, 3,000 plus lines of code. If we click on that Bootstrap, let's see how many lines it actually is. If I go all the way down to the bottom of that file, it is 6,758 lines long. That is a whole lot of CSS, and you probably won't use a fraction of it. So, when you do something like this, and you're using these little shortcuts, and they help because sometimes you forget code. It happens. You're not expected to remember all this code after one class. Sometimes I have to go in here and look at these rules and think, okay, that's how I need to set that up. And you see I simply copy and paste it. So the first thing we're going to look for is that .row rule. I'm going to hold my command key down, hit my letter F as in Frank, and type .row. Well, look at that. It's on row 1611. And I'm going to make sure it's not in a media query. It's not in a media query. So I'm going to copy it. I'm going to highlight it and copy it. And I'm going to go to File, go to New. I'm going to choose CSS. I'm going to choose Create. And I'm simply going to paste it on an empty line. Well, there's the first one. Go back to that Grids tab. And it tells me right here that there are 4 instances of that .row. So I'm going to click the next one. It's the before and after rule. It's not in a media query either. So I'm going to highlight the before and after, copy it, paste it, and then find the actual rule. Because as you can see here, there's a bunch of rules included in this same category. And here's the rule that belongs to them. So I'm going to copy it back over here and paste it. There's that rule. And then we have my next rule, another before and after. I'm going to go down and look at those actual rules table. That's the one we just did. Right. No, this belongs in a media query. So I'm going to highlight it. I'm going to copy it. Come over here. I'm going to hit my enter key a few times. There's that media query. I'm going to add the bracket that goes with it. And then go back here. Make sure I didn't copy the other one from a media query. Oh, it looks like I might have. Let's go back and look at that. Yep, this one belongs in a media query too. Copy that. Go back over here. Paste. Add that bracket. And this same rule goes in the next media queries. Copy. Paste. And then that's 2. I've done 3. So next is 4. Let's see what media query we're in. 768. Already done that one. I need to add the clear both attribute in the 768 style. So back up here, I'm just going to hit my enter key and include it right there. So there's that. Make sure I got them all. Yes. 768 media query. Yes. Yes. And so that's it for the row. So now I need my column. So it was column medium 6. So back to my bootstrap .col md 6. A lot of stuff going on with that. With that one column, I'm going to copy this rule. Go back to my style sheet, and it's not a media query there. And I need to add the .col -md -6. And it looks like there's 3 of them. So I'm going to go to the next one. It's inside of a media query. I'll copy it. And I don't have that media query. Let's paste it. And my bracket, my enter key. And it's a simple rule. Float left. Copy it. Paste that rule. And of course I need to add that .column /md /6. Save. Oops. And then let's see what's next. And the last one, let's see what media query this is in. It's in 992. Is that the media query we just did? It is. So I'm going to go back down there. And it's a width. So I'm just going to copy the width property and come back over here and paste it in there. So that is my column and my row. So I'm going to go to File, save as. I'm going to save it in my site root folder. And I'm going to save it as the grids.css. Save, hit replace. And let's take a look at what we have. What does this tell? Unexpected token. I'm missing one somewhere. No. That was my row rule. Let's find that rule again. See if I forgot to copy something. That row. Come on, all the way back up here. Grandf dot row. There it is. This was, oh, it wasn't actually in the media tag though, was it? No, it's not. It comes after the media tag. It comes after the media tag. So that means this command X V is there, comma, comma, comma. Oh, there shouldn't be a comma after the last one. There's that. And that fixes all of our errors. So now I'm going to go back over here. I'm going to close out that, click back on my source code, and I want to get rid of all this gray text here. I'm going to simply delete it, and I'm going to change this. Oh, I'm going to erase that, re-add quotations, hit browse, and pick my grid CSS. Save. Come on, pick up my media queries. Go into my CSS designer here. Yes, I've got two. One. There they are. But you see they're not on the same row. So that means we're missing something somewhere. Let's go back up here to my grid CSS, margin, margin, column, position relative, medium height, 1 pixel, 15 pixels, padding left. I'm going to click back on that bootstrap because it will stay connected until you have closed and reopened this document. And I'm going to go to code view so we can see more of this. There's my media print, font face. And f.col md-6. We got that one. Oh, this should have been in a media query. Oops. No, it shouldn't have. That's the other thing about Bootstrap is they don't put all their media queries in one spot. And so they kind of jump around everywhere. And so you have to check and make sure that whatever you're doing is not in a media query. but it should come after a media query, it looks like. There's your row. There's your column. $68. $68. That should be small. That's the 922. Float left. That makes it 100%. There it is. That's the rule we need. I'll copy it. And that goes at 992. 992. Hope it's there. We did get that one. My guess is there's another one we don't have. 3. And this is 992. There should be one at 1200 too. That's the large file. Save all. And still isn't pulling that in. So what I will do is go just like this, copy, paste, and I'm going to change this to 1200. Save. Come on. Split. Close. Almost there. Source code. No breaks. Is it grids or grid? It's grids. Yeah, it's still not bumping us and making us big. Row relative 1 pixel 768 50%. This one should have a 50% too. Column medium 6 width 50%. And we're 1200, right? Yes. 992. We're not floating though. How come we're not float left? We're still not floating. It's been a very long time since I've used these little shortcuts. I think it's some media queries that are messed up. Usually I write my own, guys. I've been doing it long enough that I have a cheat file. I just drag them in and toss them in here from. But oops. Let's see if, let's see which rule is affecting this. There it is. It was that rule. Why is that rule affected the site? Because this should technically be float left. Nope. So this minimum height 1 pixel. Padding right, but if I take this whole rule away, we work. And then if I drag my padding over, there we go. It was that top rule. And now it breaks them down and puts them underneath. Now, guys, normally I write my own CSS, and that's what we're going to do here. So let's start. We're going to start at desktop size. So that's the way I normally design. And dot row. I always do my margin left and right to auto. I usually add some padding. Not usually too much, but just enough to make sure there's always some padding there on the edges. And then we have our column rule. Now, when I'm doing a 2-column, I usually don't call it column medium 6. I will do, usually I do 2-column. It's easier for me to remember what that rule is supposed to be, what that rule is supposed to be called when I'm coding 6 pages of a website. Instead of having to flip back to the CSS to figure out, I usually name it something I can remember really fast, like 2-column, 3-column, 4-column, 5-column, so forth. So then we have our 2-column. And since we're designing from desktop to mobile, in this case, the width would need to be set to 50%, and it would need to float left. And I can set the display to table. Save. I want to get rid of that bootstrap. Where's my source code? For some reason, we're still connected. And I need to rename these 2-column, 2-column, and there they are. I'm going to add back here. There we go. And on this row, I'm going to give it a background color. I'm just going to pick a light shade here so that we can distinguish the background. That's all I'm doing there. So there's my background. I'm going to do the same thing on my columns. Background, color picker. And I'm going to add some padding to those columns. Padding. Now, you notice it bumped that down. Remember, you may remember the code I showed you last week to keep that from happening. Anybody? We talked about it last week. It was about setting the display. It started with an asterisk. It's the box sizing. So up here by this row, I'm going to add an asterisk. box sizing. And everything's going to be a border box. Whoops, border box. Why? Because that way when I add padding, it will automatically include that calculation within the 50%. Otherwise, if I don't have that, you saw it broke it down and moved column 2 to column 1. Why? Because when I added the padding, it added it to that 50%. Therefore, 2 columns couldn't be on the same row. But as long as I do this nice little generic line of code, it will add anything like padding to within that 50%, not outside of it. Margin. Oops. Margin left. Let's go 10 pixels. And you see it bumped it down. So that means I'm going to have to change my percentage. It does not count margins, but it will count padding. And I want to make sure that we can see the difference between our rows and our columns. That sort of thing. I want to do minimum height 25 pixels. Right. Yes. Actually, I could just do it at height. Right. Not quite good enough. Let's try 50 pixels. Still not quite good enough. 70 pixels. Yay! Okay, so this gives you an idea. You've got a row and 2 columns within that row. So let's say I wanted to do a 3 column. I'm going to copy that rule, paste it, and simply change 2 to 3. And at desktop size, if I need to get 3 columns on 1 row, you simply divide 3 by 100 and you get what? 33.33333 something. So if I change this to 33% and hit save, let's see if that's enough. So we're going to go down here. There's our first row. I need to do another row. So we'll do div class equals row. And then div class equals, I'm going to go 3 column. And oops, this is column 1. Oops. I'm just going to copy this and paste it. I'm going to change this to a 2 and paste again. We get a 3. But looks like we're not quite squished enough. We added that margin. I need to add a top margin to my row rule to choose because I want you guys to be able to see where it breaks. Margin top. 15 pixels. There we go. So I'm going to go down to that 3 column and let's try 32%. There we go. And look at that. So we've got a rule div, 2 columns, another rule div, and 3 columns, 3 different div tags within that row. Very simple code. You just have to think about it. That's what it amounts to. You have to plan and you have to think. So we've got rows, we've got columns. So let's say we want to do a 4 column. 2, 3, 4 columns are your normal columns. And sometimes you may get into 5 or 6 column, that sort of thing. But usually for the majority of web design I do, it's 2, 3, 4, just depending on the website. So I'm going to copy that 3 column, hit my enter key. And there's a 3 column. Let's change it to a 4 column. And 4 columns should be about 25%, but I know I'm going to need to go a percent smaller. So I'm going to go ahead and set it at 24. And then go back to our source code. and find the end div tag row, because it needs to be a new row. So div class row div class 4 column, and this is column 1. And copy it, paste it, column 2, paste it, 3, paste it, and there's 4. Whoops, there's 4. So now we have 3 different rows and 3 different row div tags. There's 1, there's 2, there's 3. And then we have our column. Two column div tags in our first row. There's 1, there's 2. And then we get to our 3 columns. 1, 2, 3. And then of course our 4 column. There's 1, 2, 3, and 4. So now we've got 4 columns. So the other thing you may use is something like a 3/4, meaning you're going to have a small column like you do in our 3rd row here, like a small 4 column width, and then the rest of it is filled with a larger image, like 3/4 image. And it's an easy rule. What's the width? If it's going to be 3/4 of our screen, and our screen is 100%, then 3/4 is going to be what? 75%, right? That's 3/4 of 100, or 3/4 of $1. So now, since I know I'm going to have all of these same rules here, I'm going to copy this. I'm going to paste it. And oh, it's supposed to be 75. I'm going to set it at 74. And I'm going to change the background color just because it's a totally different type of rule. Let's go with a lighter blue shade. Like that. So now if I go back to my code, and after that last row, I'm going to do div class equals row. This is a new row. And then div class equals, first I'm going to do 1 4 column. Oops. 1 4 column. And this is column 1. And then I'm going to do my div class equals 3/4 of a column. This is column 2. And you can see the perfect grid alignment you get going on. I know it was kind of hard to see this in the assignments that we did because the code was already there and you weren't having to create a whole lot of it. And it's a little more difficult to see when you start adding images. But you can see with just colored squares like I just did, that there is all kinds of stuff that you could do with this. And it all depends on your website itself. But that's why you do things like this is planning your div tags is where a wireframe comes in really, really handy, because the wireframes don't have images. They don't have colors. They are just going to show those rows in quote unquote columns. If we go back and open up one of the wireframes from our DS248 folder, let's see. Let's open the services page. Let me share my Acrobat here. Come on. This is our services page. So we start at the very top. Our first row contains the logo and navigation bar, right? It's right. Come on. Our logo and navigation are right here, right? How many columns? It's 2 columns. You've got your logo, you've got your nav. And then you bump down to your next row. How many columns is the next row? It's 1 whole column, isn't it? So your next row is just 1 column. And then you have a 3rd row. How many columns are in this 3rd row? 2. Yeah, this row has 2 columns in it. What about your 4th row? Oops. How many columns are in that? 4 columns. That's right. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is where you, oops, my mouse likes to change my PDFs all by itself. This is where your wireframe comes in really handy at planning your code. Why? Because you can start doing your CSS before you ever start doing your HTML code. That way, while you're adding those div tags and you're adding those codes, you can see what's happening. It's already set up and fallen into place where you told it to go, which you planned off your wireframe. So things start popping in order and looking the way they're supposed to right off the bat. It becomes less confusing than trying to do the CSS second. I usually do my basic CSS first. That doesn't mean that I'm not going to have to go in and adjust some things, because whatever final design is may be slightly different than the wireframe. I may need to add more padding. I may have guessed wrong at the space between each one. And I may have to go in and adjust little things like that. But the overall look of the website starts falling into place as I put the stuff in there. Now I may have to go back and add background classes to change background colors of these columns and things like that after I finish the page. But the basic setup, the wireframe, which doesn't include color images, gets set up before I ever even start, so that when I put those images in that div tag, it automatically falls to where it's supposed to be. I put the text in the div tag, it automatically appears. There might not be a background color yet, but the text is there, so I get an idea of what that container looks like, and then it looks the way it's supposed to. So it really takes some thought, because when you put thought into it, guys, it becomes a lot simpler. And it becomes a lot easier for you to code, because you have a plan. You know that you need 2 columns, 4 columns, and you could go from page to page. You write each one of them up and say, okay, I've got 2 columns on all of these pages. So I just need 1 rule that says 2 columns. Because I can repeat it, because it's a class, and you can repeat a class however many times you need to. Or you may say, I only have 2 columns on this page. It's the only time I'm using that 2 columns, or maybe it's the 3/4 column. It's the only time I'm using it on this page, so I'm going to have to make a separate rule. It's not a global rule. But you will know which rules you're going to repeat In root rules, you're not. The ones you're going to repeat all should be done at first so that things fall into place the way they're supposed to. I usually do all of my grid rules, meaning my rows and my columns. I'll go through and do all of those CSSs first before I ever even start doing any HTML. Just because it makes it easier when it starts popping up in Dreamweaver and I'm looking at it, I can say, yep, that's where it's supposed to be. Let's keep going. Instead of placing stuff in there and it's all over the screen and it just looks funny. And then trying to go back and style it while everything is everywhere, my brain doesn't like chaos. So if I start this way first, I am more organized and things flow a lot better. But your wireframe is what you can use to figure out how many rows you're going to have on each page, or on this page or that page. How many CSS rules do you need to make for columns? Do I have 2 columns, 4 columns, 1 column, that sort of thing. And that way you can get them done and you have a plan so that when you go in there and you make div class equals row, div class equals 2 column, and you insert that image into that div tag, guess what? It automatically goes boom on your page, and it's 50% the width. It fits in that div tag the way it's supposed to. It has margins and padding around it, and it just looks awesome. And you're not trying to go back and do that CSS when your image is huge, way bigger than it's supposed to be. And now you're trying to scale it down so everything looks right, because what happens is you end up making more rules than you actually need. Because if you plan it right from the get-go, your CSS will be a lot smaller than if you try to do it on the fly. So now let's go back and let's talk about some media queries. Okay, we have these nice grid here, but we need to do some media queries so it becomes truly responsive. Well, you do have this nice CSS designer over here, guys. And it is a helpful tool when you can't remember the rules you need to make, the attributes you need to use to get it to do certain things. This media is for your media queries, which is what makes it responsive. So if you hit the plus sign, it's going to say media, screen, yes, orientation, let's do medium width, 768, and hit OK. Now, with this highlighted, I can go back and make these rules, or I can copy and paste them from the grid CSS, meaning I could right-click on that and say duplicate to media query and click it. Well, I don't necessarily need to duplicate everything, nor do I need to, what I really need to change is our width percentages, right? Because it's gotten smaller. So at 768 on 2 column, they're going to stay 2 column. At 768 at 2 column will still be fine. But I squish this down to 768. We're looking a little funny there. So I might go into my CSS 2 column. If I duplicate that into there, it's still saying that's a little too big. So I could go to 48%. Let's see, still too big. So if I go to 45%, oops. Oh, wrong rule. This is why I don't use the CSS designer, because I tend to always forget. You have to have that media rule highlighted. So let's try it here. 48, there it goes. So at 48%, it will put those back on 2 column. Now, my 3 columns, depending what was in those columns, I could probably get away with still leaving the 3 columns on there, but definitely can't get away with the 4 column. So I'm going to go back to my regular CSS, right click, duplicate to media query, duplicate that over there, go back to my 4 column, and I want to change it a little bit. I want 4 columns to become 2 columns. So if I change that to 48%, look there. And at this media query, I want to add a top margin of like 10 pixels. Does the coding have to be exactly like mine? It depends on your wireframe and what your wireframe looks like. But you're always going to have those div tags. You're always going to have a div row. You're always going to have that, and it's going to look just like mine, that div row. Now, it probably won't have a background color like I have my rule set to right now, but it will always have margin left and right to auto, because you see what happens here is it centers all of my little columns within my row. So that will help center everything on my page so that everything's not flush left or flush right. It'll center it straight up and down the page. And it will also help, you will also have, that's about it. That's about everything that you would be just like mine. You're going to set your margin left and right to auto on the row rule. I've set my margin top pixel to 15% just so I could space out the rows. You may not do that with yours. I set my padding just to make sure there was an indent, so if I have any text in just a row and not a column, it will automatically indent it and leave some space from the side of the screen. And then, of course, I added this background color. And so I've got my 4 column there. And I might actually add a margin bottom here. And then we need to get our 2 column. You see our row on our 4 column isn't expanding quite enough, and that's because I have the height set. Go back into my source code though, and oops, wrong one. This one. Nope, that's 3/4. Cancel. Wrong. X. Just moves everything down. I want my bottom to move. Oh, not gonna get it. So what I would do if I'm having an issue like that with one of my columns, I would add something to my row, like a padding bottom rule. And then in my CSS, we only need it under that media query, which is 768. There's my padding bottom. Let's see if that's enough. Not enough. Almost. Oops. That's pretty close. That's better. So there you see my 2 column. So then we go down and look, we've got this problem with this 3/4. So I could do this one of 2 ways. Most likely I would take my 3/4 rule here and duplicate it into the media query, 768. Go to my 3/4 rule and just simply make it smaller. 5, 73, 72, 71, 68, still too small. And I need to float it. Oh, no. Where did you go? Float left, yes, we're still not small enough. So what if I do 45%? Oh, looky there. It went. Six, 7, 8, 9, 50. 50 is too big, but it looks like I can set it at 49. And we're looking pretty good, except we have a problem right here. Now, I could fix that by simply turning up that top margin, bringing it down there. I think it's actually supposed to be 10. There we go, and even it up like that. And so there are the media rules in 768, which is the tablet view, right? So our next view is when we get into cell phones. So if I hit my plus sign again, media screen, plus orientation, minimum width, say 468 is the large cell phone size. I hit OK. I'm going to go back to my 768. I'm going to select all of those by holding down my Shift key. It won't let me right click on them. We're going to do them one at a time. So I'm going to duplicate into 468, duplicate, 468, duplicate, 468, duplicate, 468, and go into this rule. I'm going to pull my slider over to the 468. Definitely have a problem, right? 2 column. I don't want it quite 100%. I usually go for like 98%. That way I make sure it still gets centered in there pretty good. Sometimes I do 99%. There's those 2 columns. And then go down to my 4 column. And instead of, oh, this is 4 column. Oh, it looks like we need to go back and copy our 3 column over there. So duplicate 468. There's 3 column. And definitely want to go full width with those. Oops. Three column, width, percent. All right, there we go. And then we have our 4 column. Well, it's got a bit of a problem there too, doesn't it? So our 4 column is here. And I might make it 2 column here. Oops, 46 is a little too small. 47, 48, ooh, 47.5, almost. $47.9. And that gives me 2 columns out of 4 columns, which still looks pretty good. And then I have, now what I have to decide is on that 4 column, when I do that, it makes this one small, but it's going to make my 2 column most likely too small. Maybe not. If it looks fine, it's fine. But how do you work around that if something like that happens and you need to suddenly make this 1 column a whole column in a certain media query? Easiest way to do that is go back to your source code. Find that column. So we're at column 1 of our 3rd or 1, 2, 3, 4th row here. So inside that class, what I would do is make a whole column rule. And go into my CSS, and under that media query, I would not put it at the top, just under the media query where I want it. More in the 468 media query. So I'm going to go down here. And do dot, whole column. And do width 100%. Like that. So it automatically makes that 100%. And duplicate width found. Oops, how did that happen? There we go. And so now in that media query, I need to work on my 3/4. I'm going to set it to 99%. Oh, my whole column, where did it go? It should be 99% too. And so there it is. So if I go in smaller, look what happens. We start looking funny, right? So technically we're going to need that smallest cell phone size. What is the smallest cell phone size? And our 4 column is still looking iffy here. There we go. Smallest cell phone size, anybody remember what it is? (320 pixels. So I'm going to hit that plus sign next to media, change my minimum width to 320, my enter key. Or I could take this and actually hit a plus sign here and change this around and make max width 468 and minimum width, oops, minimum width 320. And look at that. Now we have a problem here. So I would have to go in and actually fix those. We've got 320. That's because we've got 2 rules here. Let's get rid of this one. Come on. Delete. And so now we're missing the rule that says 468 to 768. So in the between, we have a bit of an issue. So I'm going to go back to that 768 rule, double click it, my plus sign, and change that to max width. Change this to medium width and do 768 and 468. Okay. And now I just kind of glide through there the way I'm supposed to. I usually don't use that max and minimum. I usually do it the way it was set up previously. Come on. I'm going to go back and double click this and do minimum width 468. Okay. Seven, 6, 8. Okay. So now we've done pretty good, and it switches over where it's supposed to. At 468, 2 column is 99%. Yep. At 768, 2 column, we made, no, 2 columns should still be 2 column in 768. So we need to figure this out. Our float is on. Apparently it's supposed to respond. That means something is up with our 2 column rule here. 2 column should not be set at 73%. Let's look at our source code here. Yep, 2 columns. So if I bring this back, our max size here row 3, 38%. Okay, it's not like, oh, wrong rule. 2 column, that should be display. Table, we're missing our 2 column rule from the top. I think I accidentally deleted it. Let's re-add that in there. Dot 2 column. Brackets. Copy this. Oh, not that one. Copy this. Paste it. This should say 48%. There we go. And then we slide over and we get to 768. It changes to 1, stays 1 at 468. 468, we're pretty good. That's a pretty good layout, except for our 2 column there, which is supposed to be the whole column, right? Is that rule still there? Yes. This is still there in our source code. So let's go take a look at that row, whole column. %. And I'm going to change the display to block. That works. Our 3/4 column, still set to 49%. Bring that up to 99%. And there we go for the large cell phone size. And so I'm going to need one more. I'll hit my plus sign again. And max width, 320. Now if I go between here, what do we have? We still have a problem here. I might add a duplicate of 468 with a max width. Max width 468, my enter key. And go to 468, and I'm going to duplicate these. 320, 320, 20, 320, 320, 320. Click on 320. 2 column. Go to 320. Oh, we still look good except for the 4 column row. 4 column row needs some work. So I'll click on 4 column. Seven's too big, so I go 46.5 too big. 46.4, and that breaks that down into 2 columns. I think that'll work, and that leaves them at 1. So now I need to duplicate these rules into the max width 468. And you can see as I duplicate these, things change on the screen. I need to adjust that 4 column. (46.5%). Oh, not quite enough, it looks like. A column, that down just a little. (46.8), and I'm missing the whole column rule there. I'll duplicate that over there again. There we go. And so now, I can go smaller. We're doing pretty good. Now, at this 320 size, I will probably take my 4 column and change it to 99%. And let's see, that's 1, 2. Come on. Should be that row. 99%. Change it to block. Move that padding. Turn the float up. Oops. Turn the float off. That should be 99%. Save. There it is. Come on, there's the 320 rule. And I may need to make minimum width here. I have a max. Let's set the minimum width to 300. And I'm just going to duplicate all of these to that rule. And we grab that slider. Now we're looking much better. And more responsive. 2 column. Come on. I'll save all. Be responsive. Our largest size is not being responsive. That means I've accidentally turned something off somewhere. No. That's a 2 column div. Minimum width 768. So I got file, save all, file, real-time preview. Something's still keeping us from two column, 3 column. These are all correct. This should be medium width, 768. Max width. Gonna say 800. We're okay there. Yes. CSS save. Let's get us back to normal. going to have to add a media query there. And now I want to find it, media at screen. Very bottom. Of this, copy. Paste. Delete that. There we go. And that gives me back to my original rule. Oops, did I paste that wrong? Paste it. There it goes. That gets me back to my original rule. And so as we move through here, it gets responsive. The way it's supposed to. I'm forgetting a bracket though. Ching. And so we get responsive, we get smaller, and on this screen rule, I could do set the max width of the site, do 1200 pixels, like that. And then take this, cut it, and put it at the very top. Paste it, erase that. And then you can see your responsive roller bar and the way it will work. And as you can see, as we go down, it will do what it's supposed to do when it's supposed to do it. So that makes things a lot better. And I could set this to minimum 1200. That. Save. And column. Everything's showing at 100% instead of the way it's supposed to. Oh, that's Dreamweaver. Let's real-time preview it so we can actually see it. Oops. 1280. File, save all. Come on, bring it back the way you're supposed to. My Dreamweaver's not. Here. What is this? That is 468. Minimum width, 468. I'm going to change this to 400. And max width, 468. So then we have this 300 rule, which I'm going to delete. Okay. Uh-oh, guys, I just killed my Dreamweaver. Oh, it's having issues today. That's twice today that it's just closed for no apparent reason. Oh, never mind. There's a reason. Looks like there's updates in your Creative Cloud, guys. So if you start having trouble with Dreamweaver, it is going to be because you need to do those updates. It never fails. Dreamweaver and Animate always start acting funny when you have Adobe updates, and I'm looking at 3 in my box, so you guys have probably have your updates between now and later this week. They kind of roll out a few users at a time. So if you see those updates pop up, be sure you install. Otherwise, your Dreamweaver is going to start acting like mine just did and shutting down for no apparent reason. But what we went over today, guys, you've got the drift. We set our media codes. Everything's actually coming up the way it's supposed to now. Dreamweaver's just being stupid. So you can break it down that simply. You just have to, basically, guys, you have to create a thought process. Take notes. When I first started doing web design, I did just like I showed you guys. I went through those wireframes and I took notes. Okay, a home page, column 1, row 1, I need 2 columns. Row 2, I need 4 columns. Row 3, I need 3 columns, and so forth. I took notes. Come up with, basically gives you a plan of action. And I was able to follow along with that doing my code. So I knew that I needed a div that said row here, and then between that row, I needed the div that said 2 column, and I needed 2 divs in between that row called 2 column. So I could make those and insert the stuff that went between them as I went. Insert a picture or text or whatever needed to be within that column. But if you come up with a plan of action first, it makes it so much easier. You won't be as confused. You won't lose your place in what you're supposed to be doing because you've taken notes. And I don't mean it has to be something neat and tidy. Nobody's going to see it but you. You can write it on a piece of notebook paper, scrapbook piece of paper. It doesn't matter what you write it on. Just so you have some notes that you can follow that will keep you on target while you're doing the code, because it is hard to get confused, to remember what you're supposed to do. But when you're writing that action plan up, especially when you're first starting out, I had all kinds of notes. Now, I do still typically will write down home page, 4 rows, row 1, 2 column, row 2, 3 column. I don't have to be as in-depth because I do it all the time, so I don't have to think about the code too often. It just comes out of my fingers. But starting out, my action plan used to look a whole lot different because it would go into, okay, here's my wireframe. Row 1, row 1 is in the header section. Well, row 1 is in the header, and it has 2 columns, and column 1 contains the logo, column 2 contains the nav bar. I would make notes that way off the wireframe in the mock-up so that when I got to coding, it would help my brain generate that tag. What's that tag supposed to be? Oh, this is the header section. It's the header tag. This is the nav bar. Oh, it's the nav tag. And I would do little things like that throughout my action plan to help me recall the tags I need to be using or what was actually supposed to be going there. Now it's kind of second nature. But when I first started out, my action plans were more than just row 1 has 4 columns, row 2 has 3 columns, and so forth. They were way more than that. So don't be afraid to do stuff like that. But having that action plan will make your life a lot easier when you start trying to code and create the CSS rules. Because you have it already right there. It's already planned out. You can go back and edit it as you need to. Your action plan may not always be 100% accurate. You may have forgotten to do something, and so when you start putting it in there, it's on the screen, you're thinking, no, that row's supposed to be a 4 column because there's 4 images, and now I've got 3 images on a row, and that 4th one just off here floating all by itself. So you have to go back and change the class names to 4 columns to 3 columns. No big deal. But it keeps you in the line of how you need to add this code. What comes first, what comes second, what comes third, what comes in between. So don't be afraid to make those notes, make those action plans. To this day, I still make those action plans. Sometimes I simply will print out the wireframe and mark them off, write in the margins. Basically what I do on the wireframe is out on the first wireframe, the desktop view, I will write in the margins for all 3 views, your desktop, tablet, cell phone. I'll write in the margin for all 3 of those views so that when I do the CSS, I can go ahead and do the media queries too, at least for the basic stuff, and then get it entered. So don't be afraid to do stuff like that, guys. It helps you, and whatever helps you is perfectly 100% acceptable. We all have our own style. Your stuff may not look identical as mine. You may decide to call your rows something else besides row. Row is normally used, but who knows? As you saw with Bootstrap, a lot of designers do column medium 6, column large 8, whatever, whereas I break mine down and say 2 column, 3 column. It's easier for me to remember. That's why I do it that way. That's the way my brain works with it. So don't be afraid to personalize your class names and things like that so that you know what they are. You're going to remember what they are, that sort of thing. So keep those things in mind. Whatever makes it easier on you is perfectly acceptable. As long as it works, it's simply your technique. And we all have our own technique when it comes to HTML and CSS. Yeah, it's all basically the same, but we still all have our own personalized brand, if you want to call it. You could take some of my HTML and for a website and have another designer do the exact same website, and the code is going to look different. The class names are going to look different because we all have our own unique style, and it's what makes sense to our brains. So don't be afraid to experiment and figure out what works for you and how your brain can wrap itself around this and make a plan. Experiment. Just make a blank file. Do like I did. Set some background colors of those rows and those columns and play with it and see what makes sense to you. Okay, guys, we will meet tomorrow and start on our assignment demo. And then at the end of tomorrow's lecture, we're also going to talk about the assessment. You have to do a research paper on emerging web technologies. It doesn't have to be extremely long. We'll go over those directions tomorrow, but we're going to talk a little bit about emerging web technologies. And I'm going to show you a few sites that are really good for references for you using as your resources and things like that. So I will see you guys tomorrow at 3 p.m. Mountain Time.